Real True Education, not fake news. The 1st of March 2021. March of 2021. You're welcome back. 11G on banking closures. I've done a good few videos on the banking system and on banking, and I think I got everything reasonably well on that. Anyway, 103 banks are to close on the island of Ireland under the Bank of Ireland banner. 103. Now this comes on the wake of an announcement that Ulster Bank is going to pull out altogether here in Ireland, in Cavan alone. Well, in this region we had Carrickmacross and we had one in Cavan Town, Ulster Banks. Now the Bank of Ireland is pulling out, so the Ulster Bank's pulling out. Bank of Ireland are downsizing, they're getting rid of 103 offices, and that includes Kingsford, Crookshill and Arba in County Cavan. Athvoy is closing in County Meath, and there's several all over, including Ballyfermers in Dublin, and you'll get the list on the journal.ie if you haven't already seen it. Now, I hear people making various comments, oh, we could do without the banks, so what do we need them for and all that. I know there's a lot of internet banking and all that, but one thing which is false is that credit unions can just do as good. Credit unions recently issued notices to friends of mine who were members of various credit unions, telling them that they will not take any more than 40,000 euros on deposit. So if you go in with 70,000 euros, they won't take it. And the reason they won't take it is they used to go straight up to the bank and lodge that in the bank. They'd loan some of it and they'd pay you a little interest on it. They get a bit of interest on the bank and they make a bit of interest from their accounts by giving loans to people from the credit union. But they stopped taking large amounts, which proves that they were using the banks for a banking system to store their money. They weren't totally independent of the banks. Now, Dr. Cormac Lucy had an article in the paper recently about what happened is that during the lead up to the 2008 crash, there was very loose regulation. There was terrible regulation on the banks, and now they've tightened up. They've made it too tight. Now it's too tight. Now, having said that, Dr. Lucy, I have a lot of time for him. I know myself that the financial regulator, the Director of Corporate Enforcement, does not do the job it should. But I do know the banks are being tightly watched, and that costs money. That's the problem, because the best way to regulate is self-regulate and do the thing right, but they didn't do that in the lead up to the financial crash. So that's it. That's what's happening there. We're losing them, and I have said that we'll eventually see all the banks just run from Brussels. It'll all be done by the internet from Brussels. Now the post offices are doing, An Post is doing internet banking. No, sorry, they're doing banking. If you go in and pay bills that you would normally pay in the bank, in the post office, and that is useful. That's a very useful thing in that way. Now I think AIB will be going, because they're not going completely, but they'll be downsizing. They have terrible debt. And there's no kick up, nobody cares. There's nothing from politicians there. It's just doesn't do them at all. Oh, what do you hold us for? And the people are happy with that. And nobody seems to care. The Irish people, if you're from outside Ireland, the Irish people don't care. Not a hoot do they care. So that's the situation. At the time of after the financial crash in 2008, we ended up owing 64 billion euros. And now with the COVID and all that, we owe 201 billion euros. If you took the miles from the Earth to the Sun and put €1 opposite every mile from here to the Sun, it's 2,000 times. So if you put a mile, the number of miles from here to the Sun, 93 million miles, we owe 2,000 times that if you put €1 for each mile. Or put it another way, if you take our population, every human being living in the Republic of Ireland, they owe €44,500 each. So a couple that will be paying tax have a bill of €88,000. Every child going to school, every old person in a nursing home, everyone owes 44,000. And as nearly half of them will never be able to pay it and won't be taxpayers. That means the average person who's working and paying tax owes €88,000 to pay off this debt. And there was a huge stink created on RT and all the radio when the bill of 64,000 became apparent. No, there's not any remarks at all. The Federal Reserve are printing money like there's no tomorrow. But there is a twist in that the cost of second-hand cars has risen in America. People are buying more second-hand cars. And also the cost of government borrowing has gone up. Now, what was happening up to now, governments wanted money. The Federal Reserve in America and the private markets gave them loans, and they were getting negative interest rates. That's the way it was gone. And I made the point with this before. But what's happening now is that because investors are getting jittery, the Biden administration is borrowing and borrowing and borrowing. And they're just throwing everything at it, at the COVID. And in Ireland, we are doing the very same. It's no expense spared. And the interest rates are starting to climb again on government borrowing, government debt. And that would have catastrophic effect. If, let's say, our interest rate that we are paying, I mean, Leo Varadkar went off looking for money there recently, and he came back boasting that he had it almost free, which is true. But if that went up to 3 or 3.5% on 201 billion euros, 44,500 per every person living in Ireland, if that went up by 2 or 3%, it would have catastrophic effects. It would be very hard to see how they'd get borrowing at that stage. And it's very hard to see who or what fund managers who run pension funds, etc., why they've been giving away their money like this, and will eventually reality have to come into it. In any event, folks, that's it. Our bank is gone. We will have no bank in the parish of Kingsford now at all. There's no bank in Shercock for a long time. And there'll be maybe one in Carrick. There'll be one in Ballybor here, which would service this area, and there'll be one in Cavan. But don't forget, Kingsford is a huge industrial zone. We have resources of gypsum, brick clay, we have Kingspan, we have all of these things, and big industry around here, and a big farming thing and all that, and still we can't have a bank in our town. People will maybe comment here on there and say it doesn't matter, maybe we're as well off without them. But the fact is, during British times and during the early part of the state, there was 2 banks survived in the town of Kingscourt. And now there's none. That's the hard fact. Okay, folks, it's just a chat we're having anyway. So, thumbs up, please. Thumbs down. I have a big fear, and I've talked to a lot of people about this, that what's really happening here, with Ulster Bank pulling out, with Bank of Ireland downsizing, with Danske Bank gone over 10 years, and with AIB probably in trouble too, or in some sort of a downsizing, a retrenching. What's really happening here, in my view, is there is an unbelievable catastrophe coming at us at a high speed. A year ago, I was making videos showing how the whole ridiculous situation was running out of control with huge debt. And our government was giving away any little wealth we had, throwing it around them, anything, especially green nonsense. And that's still there. Nothing changed there. I showed how 20 times the national GDP, the national production of the world, is in these derivatives. How contracts, they're not worth anything. They're just agreement. I owe you and you owe me. And I've shown as well that the trick of all this is for accountants and those who are compiling accounts and auditors to make the value of the assets a way too high, to make it a way too high, so that the property owned by companies could be 3 to 4 times what it really is, and this allows them to show that they're a going concern and making a profit. That's a very, very dubious way of working. And now, with all of this, I think what's really happening is the writing is on the wall. The banks of Ireland and the banks elsewhere know right well the number is soon up. I hope it's not the case. It could bring in terrible poverty. It could be unbelievable poverty. On the other hand, I mean, I don't like to see the squandering of our little countries, a little bit of wealth, a little bit of things that we work hard for, a little bit of money we work hard for, taken away from us and thrown away by our government. And I hope that doesn't come to real suffering. But it could, and we have to realise our neighbours, and I've said this before, our neighbours voted for this and will continue to vote for it. And you cannot talk to them. They're as headstrong, and the young people coming up are going to go for Sinn Féin, and they're as bad. They're a real socialist type communist sort of party. There's very, very little hope, unless that an economic collapse like that, a severe collapse, would maybe bring people to their senses and realise that you can't get away with what they're doing. That doesn't work and never did. However, I've been a long time shouting that it's going to come, and it hasn't happened yet. I've been a long time shouting that there'd be blackouts of electricity. There's been a few, but they've got through the winter. And I've been long saying that there has to come a crash. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we'll see nothing. Maybe it won't matter at all. It's very funny why these banks are getting out of the game and reducing and not engaging. And how are people going to get a bit of a loan? It used to be that you could go into the bankman if you wanted to change the tractor or the car and get a loan. How is that going to work? It's not going to be as easy, we know that. But on the other hand, we can sell cattle on the internet. So I don't have the answers to this. I hope I'm partly wrong, but it's strange. There's strange things happening, unreal things happening in the financial services and in all of that sort of stuff. And then you take the employment that these banks were providing, and that's gone as well. So is it progress or is it not? People tell me that my opposition to the pylons and the wind farms is stopping progress. They tell me that's stopping progress. That's what they say. Well, we'll soon see. It could come to a head, and if it does, it could be very, very, very severe. There's no doubt COVID-19 will change things unbelievably. Everyone knows that. Whether I was right to let that happen or not doesn't matter now. I can't open my mouth on COVID because my YouTube channel will be shut down. But I have my opinions on it, and it's very easy to spend when you have your hand in someone else's pocket. So let's see what happens. What will happen? Fianna Fáil are down very low in the polls at the moment, and Fine Gael are still holding there. So it's interesting times. Well, we're losing our bank in Kingsford anyway. Boy is losing his bank. Arba, Clonus, I think, is losing it. I think it must have no bank at this stage. So folks, we'll let you go with that. So give me another thumbs up or a thumbs down. It's interesting times. We'll see you back. Thank you very much.